Okay, so we've made it to the sales order. Just to recap, we started with the contact addresses, which allows us to store multiple addresses per Salesforce contact. Using those contact addresses, we created a quote so that it would have the appropriate billing address and project or shipping address on the quote. Then we turned that quote into a sales order, which is what we have now. So again, these items here could be products or services. It just depends on what your business model is. In either case, we have a couple of directions you can go from here. Number one, if it's a service business, then you could task this sales order out to one of your staff to take care of an action, or you could outsource this service to a supplier or a partner. And in that case, you would be creating a drop shipment. So if you were going to pass this off to a supplier, you would go create purchase order. It shows you the items on the purchase order that are product related, and you can select a supplier from the list and create the purchase order. It also shows you the default price that you're used to paying for that item and the quantity that are on the purchase order, quantity or on the sales order rather. Quantity 2 are needed. You're going to have quantity 2 shipped from there, or you could change it. Perfect. So now we're back to this purchase order that we just created for the supplier, and you'll see it's a drop shipment type. You could change your mind and say, I'd rather just have it shipped to me. In that case, if you were to change it to a standard shipment, it would use the address that you have on file for your company, your location, and change the shipping address there. In this case, it's going to ship to the address of the customer. So from here, you can preview that PDF, and there it is, the address of the vendor, the address of the customer. You could hit send, and that supplier would receive that purchase order. By creating this drop shipment, it also, let's click back on the sales order. We'll go back there. We'll look at those lines. It puts that purchase order line right here in line with that product, so you know that it was shipped. And if you view it, it shows you this line right here. Quantity 2 was needed. Quantity 2 were shipped, which means that there are 0 left that required, and it shows you the purchase order line where you can go view that. The other thing it did automatically for us, it created a shipment right here as part of that drop shipment. What we need to do now is just go in and edit it and put in the tracking number. Maybe the supplier gave it to us. Maybe we gave them a tracking label to ship with, so we can see. So now we have the shipment created. We go back to the sales order. This order, if it's done at this point, you could go ahead and change the status right here from open to billing. So billing is a trigger. You could do one of two things. You could say it's closed, at which point it will just close the sales order and it's done, nothing happens. But if you want the system to automatically create an invoice for you, email it to the customer, then you would choose the billing trigger. And what this also does, it does two things. It looks at what the payment method was. So for instance, if it was credit card and the customer had already paid via credit card the $599.50, if those two fields are filled out like that, it's going to look at those fields when it creates the billing, the invoice, and it's going to say this sales order was already paid for. And so when it creates an invoice for them, it's going to create one that is already paid with a 0 balance due, so that their accounting people get the accurate document that reflects the payment that was already made. If you were to change this to, say, purchase order, and this amount paid to 0, that would send them an unpaid invoice with a balance due. So let's go take a look at that real quick. Actually, we'll do that in the next video. We'll look at invoices. Perfect.